Hello, everyone. We will be getting started with the event. I think there are more people joining, so we will give them a minute or two before we get going. Thank you very much for joining us. All right. We already have 70 some people joining us, so let's get started. My name is Haishan Fu. I'm the director of the Development Data Group at the World Bank. A big warm welcome to all of you to this event, the 50 by 2030 initiative to close the agricultural data gap, learning from partner country implementation to date. I'm really excited to join all of you and to facilitate this session. I just want to let you know we have already started recording this event, and I will be posting the video on the UNSC Commission's website, so others could benefit from the discussions we're having today. And in today's event, we will be covering the following. I will give a quick introduction of our speakers, and we will have an overview of the state of the initiative, and have two learning sessions. One is 50 by 2030 Learning Area 1 on coordination, and second, it's on the data generation activities so far. And then, of course, we will leave some time for a lively conversation with our speakers and participants at the end. I'm just really happy and pleased to be able to introduce you the speakers who are with us today. We have Eliza Mahamadou, Program Manager of the 50 by 2030 initiative. We also have Abarash Tariq, Deputy Director of the General Statistical Agency of Ethiopia. Patrick Okello, Director, Agricultural and Environment Statistics of Uganda Bureau of Statistics. I must thank both of you. I know you are already at a time zone at close to midnight, so thank you so much for making this effort to join us. I'm also very happy to have 3 other colleagues who are based in Rome. It's also not early for you, but I'm really glad you can all make it. We have Christophe Durmel, 50 by 2030 Initiatives Data Production Manager from the FAO. Also Emily Hogue, the Data Use Components Manager from EFAT, as well as Alberto Zaza, who is the manager of the Methods and Tools Development component of the initiative. So with that, let's get started. I just want to before I give the floor to our speakers, I want to mention that while we will be discussing the advancement of the initiative and share everyone with what we have learned so far, I want to recognize the enormous effort of all the partners and countries and donors during this COVID year with extraordinary challenge, but still with all of your engagement and your effort, we're able to make the progress we're going to discuss with all of you today. Of course, throughout the discussion, we'll be using the hashtag 50x2030 if you want to follow along and join the conversation on Twitter. During the Q&A, I would welcome you to put your questions in the chat so that I'll be able to help facilitate the discussion and engage with the speakers. In the chat, you'll be also able to find links to resources that are mentioned during the program so that you can refer to them accordingly. Now, let's move into our first agenda item. I will invite Elisa to give us the overview and the current state of the initiative. Elisa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Haishan, and good day, everyone, evening, afternoon, morning for those of you. In the next slide, I'm just going to give you an overview of the initiative for those of you joining today who are not familiar with the initiative. The initiative is aiming at supporting increased and sustained evidence-based decision-making in support of national, regional, and global development frameworks, particularly SDG 2. And it's really about partner countries producing and disseminating more higher quality, timelier, and more disaggregated agriculture and rural survey data. The way we do this is through the strengthening of national agriculture data systems, hopefully by 50 lower and low middle income countries by 2030 to bridge these data gaps. We have three components, the data production component, which is led by FAO, the data use component led by IFAD, and the methods and tools development component led by the World Bank. The process is to go through a cost-effective integrated agriculture and rural survey program that is established with the country, but also looking into the data use and improving it through the support of one of our implementing agencies. In the next slide, what should come out of it in terms of the support that the initiative provides to the country is an improved production of SDG 2 related indicators. About 8 SDG 2 indicators are produced through the initiative, as well as other regional agreements such as the Comprehensive Agriculture African Development Program, where we are also supporting about 9 indicators, but those numbers may come up as we continue improving our survey instruments, but also at least contribute to the computation of additional ones. We have a specific focus, of course, in improving gender disaggregated data at the country level, particularly looking at issues around land tenure, land ownership, access to financial resources. We also have one of our subcomponents looks at applied research and alternative data sources, in particular Earth observation, but also with time, the integration of administrative data. And of course, all of this through the continuous improvement of the survey instrument, which should help the country engage in data collection operations that are more cost-effective and efficient, as well as ensuring that the data we have produced is then used as well by the country. So where do we stand today? In terms of the progress and learning, we have started partnering much more forcefully with the countries in terms of the country engagement process. And that means as well looking into establishing a country coordination group, looking into as well having a commitment of the country that is established, because one of the important elements of the initiative is that countries engaging with us also agree to incrementally take over both technically and financially the initiative. We have currently opened a country expression of interest window for new countries to join the initiative. Once these countries have joined the initiative, we then move into developing a program implementation plan, a partnership plan, and that is actually really defining with the country the activities that we will implement in the lifetime of support of the initiative with the country, which ranges between 5 to 8 countries years, depending on the capacity of the country. And then the surveys are rolled out into the implementation. The fourth phase is in really scaling down slowly and then having the country take over. We've also adapted, of course, in terms of the COVID-19, our engagement with the country, in particular now with this engagement with the country, and we will go into this a little bit more in detail with the next speakers. So we wanted to look at 2 learning areas in a very transparent and candid way today with you. One is looking first at coordination, the next slide. It's really because the initiative is set up through the coordination of activities from our 3 implementing agencies. And it is not just the implementing agencies informing each other's and doing their activities, but really engaging in joint activities, sequencing them, building synergies, one activity being informed by the previous one from other components, but also the coordination at the country level through this country coordination group that is open not only to the National Statistical Office and the Ministry of Agriculture, which are our direct and most important stakeholders, but also the research agencies, NGOs, also development partners, resident development partners at the country level. So with that, I'll hand over to Emily to take us through this first learning area. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. My name is Emily Hogan. I am managing the data use component. And one aspect of the initiative that really stands out is the holistic approach that we take to supporting the national data system through the full cycle of the data or the data value chain, attempting to add value to each step in the process of generating the data. On the data, or on the screen, is a general diagram of a data value chain. This is a condensed version just to keep the point simple, but from the initial step of determining what data are needed until the data are used for decisions, whether it be for policy making or program design and investment decisions, we are collaborating, we're working to collaborate across the range of the 3 implementing partners, as well as with the countries and the various agencies within the countries to strengthen this whole chain of the data value chain. And to that end, we've designed the initiative with 3 components to bring specific capacities to the program. The data production component, which is led by FAO, and the data use component is led by EFAD, as well as the methods and tools development component led by the World Bank, which Elisa referred to. We all work together and we bring specific capacities and technical backgrounds, as well as mandates from our organization. We work closely throughout the life of the project in the country from the starting point until the data are used. And this is, we're in process right now, and so this is something we're really learning from about how to best do that. We start in any given country, our first step is to do an assessment and a mapping of the agricultural and rural data ecosystem. So that green area you just saw up here, this is the starting point where we do this ecosystem assessment. This is managed by the data use component. We're just initiating this work in Ethiopia and Uganda, and you'll hear a bit more in a second about the experiences there. And as they transition their programs, survey programs to the initiative, we're taking a look through this assessment to identify the stakeholders, understand the data needs, and understand the constraints within the ecosystem so that we can make sure that we're overcoming them to get to our ultimate goal, which is using the data for decisions. In tandem, the data production component begins planning work with the National Statistical Office and the ministries, and then the components work together with the government to determine the data needs that the survey can meet. And following the specification of the needs, the data production component works with the country on various aspects, from designing the first survey questionnaire, supporting the collection and the cleaning, the management of the data, and then works with the country to disseminate the data to the public. And as an example, in Cambodia, we just had a great milestone where the government of Cambodia released its first survey report and the accompanying data in early February, with the micro data sets that will soon be released in April. And it's really a momentous event to see those coming out for the first time in the country under the program. At the point where when the data are shared, the data use component also provides support to build awareness and make sure that the key users of the data know the data are available and where to get them. And we have a variety of interventions, such as workshops and other avenues we use to make sure that we build the awareness around the data. And the initiative doesn't then stop with the data release. The data use component continues. It works to identify key stakeholders who take the shared data and then can add value to it through research and analyses and develop products that are helpful for answering the critical questions that particularly that the national stakeholders have around policy and investments. So as we work with the stakeholders across this data value chain, including the Ministry of Agriculture and the National Statistical Offices, we also work with the academic research centers, development partners, and many more to enhance the relationships between them and the communication between them to maximize the opportunities for data use. And as an example of that, we are currently conducting a grant competition in 5 countries for local researchers proposing novel research they can conduct with the 50 by 2030 survey data. And you can find more about that on our website. And I think that they're in the chat box, you'll find a link for that as well. In further support of the entire process that's happening at the country level, the methods and tools component is supporting the full initiative with advanced research on the best tools and practices for survey systems. And their work leads to constant improvements in our processes and in the survey systems through the data collection instruments and the methods that the countries are using for data collection. So we're constantly improving how we're finding better ways to collect and use the data. Furthermore, the process shown here in this diagram doesn't just happen once under the project. This is just the first year that is demonstrated in the arrow, and this data value chain repeats each year for the life of the project. And so here you see a few more arrows to show for the number of years that the initiative is working on the survey program. Then this cycle repeats to constantly improve the value of the data. So now I'll hand it over to Avarash Tariku in Ethiopia, who will tell us about this experience of coordination and what we're learning from it in the example of Ethiopia.
Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Avarash Tariku, Deputy Director General, Central Statistical Agency of Ethiopia. I'll be presenting Ethiopia's experience. So Ethiopia is one of the countries participating in the 50-2030 initiative. And we began program planning in September 2020. And the initiative is a national wide approach, which is very much useful. It creates a bridge and better coordination among major actors of the agricultural statistical system in the countries. In Ethiopia, we well-organized and comprehensive country coordination group is formed. And the country coordination group comprises of Central Statistical Agency, Ministry of Agriculture, Planning and Development Commission, Environment, Forest, Climate and Climate Change Commission, and also Agricultural Research Institute. So the country coordination group is led by the CSA Director General and relevant Deputy Directors, heads of department and experts in Central Statistical Agency are also members of the country coordination group. And these are, as I said, are also members, Ministry of Agriculture, Environment Agency, and Research Institutes, and Planning Commission. So the procedure which we followed to form the country coordination group is that we requested relevant agencies to assign staff, and the agencies assigned staff officially by official letter. And then those country coordination groups are officially established. So the country coordination group enables the country to engage with the 3 implementing agencies, World Bank, FAO, and IFAD, in one program. and also under one umbrella. So this facilitates coordination. And in Ethiopia, in addition to the experts who are assigned as a member of country coordination group, the higher officials in the relevant ministries and agencies are well informed and strongly support the project. And the country coordination group held different virtual meetings with the program management team, implementing agencies. So the country coordination group started, and some of the activities conducted by the country coordination group is the draft program implementation plan is developed by the country coordination group, and the program implementation plan agricultural the interest of all members of the country coordination group. So the SPARS, the Strategic Plan for Agricultural and Rural Statistics, which was developed by Central Statistical Agency by support from FAO and African Development Bank, is used as a starting point in preparing the program implementation plan. So the country coordination group will finalize now the program implementation plan in consultation with implementing agencies. And now the country coordination group is also preparing the country commitment letter, which will be submitted through Ministry of Finance. To conclude, we expect that this project will improve the statistical coordination system in the country and will also fill the agricultural data gap and also improve the data use. So thank you very much, and Alberto will add his view on coordination part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abhiraj. I will speak of our experience with coordination in particular as part of the methods and tools component, which I am managing. So one tenet of 50x30 is that of increasing not only data availability, but also data quality. And this can only be done through the development, testing, and promotion of improved survey methods, which are based on rigorous science, and the use of appropriate scalable technologies. So in this type of R&D work, what 50x30 is doing in terms of collaboration is adopting an approach which relies on different types of partnerships. Institutional, so based, for instance, with partnership with UN working groups, but also technical with subject matter experts, whether from academia or the private sector, and operational with those who are in charge of collecting the data, so mainly the NSOs, but also those who are developing specific technologies which we can integrate in the survey work. So one example of this type of ongoing work is Earth observation data, which has been mentioned before, where we're focusing on developing methods and guidelines to collect and disseminate ground truthing data that can inform the development of ever more granular Earth observation products. To do that, we partner with academics and private sector on the research front, for instance, with Atlas AI based at Stanford University, while also working with national statistical offices who to collect ground data, but also with other initiatives who are focusing, for instance, on the dissemination of this type of data while preserving confidentiality, to make the data available to the entire community of users globally. Also, NASA and the European Space Agency are part of our initiatives through experts from their organization who are sitting in our technical advisory group. So the current focus of this work is on measurement of production, cultivated area and yields for maize, rice, sorghum, and wheat. The first outputs are expected to start coming out next month, and actually, so be on the lookout for the first seminar, which is scheduled sometime in March, where we will present the first results from this work. Similarly, we're also working with partners for the introduction of technologies for the objective measurement of some metrics that are particularly difficult to obtain via traditional survey technologies, via farmer self-reports. So things like crop variety identification, in which we're partnering with the CGIAR and with SPIA, soil health, where we worked in the past with ICRAF, and we're also talking now to others in the CGIAR system who are interested in this type of work, or weather and climate, where also the plan is to partner with private sectors or foundations who are developing sensors that can be deployed through our network of survey sites. So we see these not as gadgets, not as toys, but as essential parts of a modern, cost-effective data system. Next slide, please. So as it has been mentioned, the survey instrument for the initiative have been developed, are available on our website, and these are to a large extent based on existing instruments that have been developed through, let's say, parent initiatives in a way, which are the LSMS ISA program at the World Bank and the Agri-Survey program at the FAO. So I should note also that I'm based in a center that we opened in Rome, the Center for Development Data, precisely to work closely with partner UN agencies that focus on the production of agricultural statistics. And our teams have been working together shoulder to shoulder in developing these instruments, but also working in partnership with NSOs. So for instance, Patrick Okello from UBOS can speak of the Uganda experience, in which we have been working closely together in the integration of their agriculture and household surveys, and Aberash also can testify of the work in Ethiopia, where we're working. They already have a system that is to some extent integrated, and we're working to keep modernizing it. So we're also setting up processes, though, to ensure that there is always a two-way link between the data production and the R&D side, so that not only the data production is informed by the latest technology, but also our program of R&D is informed by what we learn from implementation in the countries and from other stakeholders who partners with us. So one example of that is our collaboration with the Women's Project, where we're working with IFPRI, Emory University, and others to develop and test metrics of women empowerment. And particularly in this area, we're also now with COVID striking, thinking of how to measure these contracts also through phone surveys. So with that, I will conclude this part and then it over to Elisa to open the second part. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto. And just before we go into that, just to let you know that we are pasting the links to some of the documents and resources that we are mentioning here in the conversation. And the second point is, please feel free to already post your questions in the chat. We will be collecting them and coming back to them after looking into all of the learning areas and all of the speakers. So the second area we wanted to look into is data generation, just because this is a program looking in the center of it at a survey program. And the data generation learning area we want to look at is also because it is building on existing programs. It is customizing, and it's also aiming to ensure that there is less duplication, there is a lower response burden, and other learning areas. So I'll hand over to Christophe to take us through this.
Thank you, Elisa. Hi, everyone. I'm Christophe Duhamel from the FAO Statistics Division, leading the data production component of the initiative. So under the initiative, countries are supported to implement an integrated survey program, which is built on existing AGRIS and LSMS tools. Depending on their needs, wishes, capacities, the countries decide to implement or a farm-based modular survey program, which is integrating an annual core module focused on crop and livestock production, and several periodic rotating modules on key agronomic and economic dimensions of farming. This farm-based modular survey program is covering both households and non-household commercial farms. So this is what we call the agricultural model, which is for the moment implemented through the initiative in Senegal, Cambodia, Armenia, or Georgia. Countries can also decide to align this farm model with a household-based rural socioeconomic survey like LSMS-ISA, covering topics such as income, poverty, employment, or food security. Here, the starting point is the household and its livelihoods, covering agricultural and non-agricultural households in rural areas. So this integrated model, farm plus socioeconomic survey, already in fact implemented in Ethiopia and in preparation in Uganda, is the model recommended in the framework of the initiative. This is the model recommended because it's producing more data. It allows better interoperability of data, but we need to keep in mind the different challenge in terms of integration of these different tools. So the model which is presented here in the graph on the right is the integrated model. So how this model is built and how this model is proposed in the framework of the initiative. So if we start from the left of the graph with the gray area, so we start from the existing situation of the survey system at country level. So support is provided at country level for preparing, adapting the existing data collection processes for accommodating the so-called annual core module on crops and livestock, which will be implemented in general the first year of support of the initiatives. This is what is in light green. And a plan of implementation of rotating modules will be decided and elaborated. So one rotating module is in principle implemented on an annual basis. So we have here the three main modules related to the core module, which are proposed in the framework of the initiative. The first one, called ILP, is related to farm income, labor, and productivity. The second one, PME, on production methods and environment. And the third one, MEA, on machinery, equipment, and assets. So when the ILP module is implemented, farm income, labor, and productivity, the additional household socioeconomic module called ILS-HH can be also administered covering income and living standards. Here in the model, the rotation is every 3 years, but it's just a model. It can be very easily customized at country level. What's also important to notice is that this is really a theoretical model, and other modules could be added according to the needs of the countries. Let's take the example, for example, of post-harvest losses, which could become a specific module added to the system. So what's really important to highlight is the fact that countries are really in the driving seat. The survey program is customized in a realistic and sustainable way. to facilitate and allow a smooth takeover at the end of the initiative. So in general, support is planned at country level for a range between 5 to 8 years of support. It's highly depending on the existing capacities and existing systems in the country. So this quite long-term support is really necessary for countries building a sustainable system of integrated surveys to be able to acquire the know-how and being able to collect, analyze, and disseminate the data to be used for national policy needs and addressing the reporting needs for the global and regional commitments, global such as the SDGs, and regional commitments. We have the example of the Malabo Declaration in Africa. So thanks to the support already provided, some countries are already able to compute some of the SDG 2's indicators, in particular 231 on productivity and 232 on income of smallholders. Georgia, Senegal, or Uganda, to name them. The elaboration of such a complex survey program will be illustrated in the following presentation by the colleagues of UBOS in Uganda. So over to you, Patrick.
Thank you very much, Christopher. I would like to say that the agriculture sector in Uganda in comparison to industry and services sectors does not mean that the sector is less important. In fact, it's the mainstay of the economy in the sense that it is the major employer and employs greater than 50% of the rural population. And you find in this country, most of the exports are again from the agriculture sector. Most of the raw materials that feed into the industries are derived from the sector. So Uganda is the first partner country to adopt the 50 by 2030 integrated survey, integrated agriculture and rural survey, which is a multi-topic living standards survey and the annual agriculture survey. So talk about value added. How have we added value to the integrated agriculture and rural survey? We're talking a single listing operation rather than having two listing operations for the Another one is about the integration of the sampling strategy. We have a shared sample where a common agricultural questionnaire will be administered. So again, that is value addition. The implementation modality of the AS and UNPS harmonized and integrated survey will cater for official agricultural statistics every year. So every year we're able to provide information at national level regions. But by annually, we shall be able to give more integrated data in terms of agroecological zones. So that means that every year, at least, we shall have some information and we shall be able to construct food balance sheets, because the annual agriculture survey is very instrumental in providing the supply side data for construction of food balance sheets. The annual agriculture questionnaire is harmonized for the integrated surveys. We have also decided to reduce the number of visits. We used to have 4 visits, but we have now cut the number of visits to 3. After planting, we go for a post-planting visit. And instead of going for a post-harvest visit, then again in the second season post-planting, and then followed by post-harvest, what we do is after the first season harvests are done, then we make the second visit, capture post-harvest information as well as post-planting information for the second season. And then the final visit will be to capture post-harvest information for second season, as well as collecting livestock statistics and agriculture holding characteristics. So we have managed to reduce the visits from 4 to 3, and that's a big cost saving. So the integrated survey in terms of content gives us a full picture of the agricultural activity and living conditions of the rural sector using the same concepts and standards. We have also integrated, like Alberto talked about, what we call Uganda National Objective Measurement study, where we do variety identification studies, we do crop cutting studies, and so forth and so forth. So we have been able to, in general, to harmonize the concepts and definitions, methodological improvements. In fact, he's talked about the Earth Observation Project, which is now being tested in clusters where the annual agriculture survey is going, and enumerators are in the field doing the pilot. So we are also, we have also introduced thematic questionnaires. So there will be rotating modules following a core module, and then we rotate the modules as Christopher had already mentioned. So what challenges have we faced? We have had a surveys of those nature that are going to that have different enumeration units, the concept of a household versus a farm household, certainly raises challenges in terms of design. And you must note that these two surveys have different survey objectives. Much as the UNPS has interest, the focus in measuring poverty dynamics, the AAS is centered on issues of production and productivity. So to get lead variables to design a study that can help us to generate representative estimates is quite challenging. It's not business as usual. We also have challenges operationalizing, because when you go for field work, deployment of field staff is a challenge. The UNPS actually deploys staff across the entire year in order to capture the seasonality elements of poverty. This does not, that's different with agriculture. So all of this is what we are working out to make sure that we come up with the estimates that are acceptable for the sector. But overall, I think the information we are going to get here is going to increase the utility of the entire data set, because it's going to be a deeper, it's going to be what can I call it? It's going to be a richer data, which is bringing together UNPS variables, issues of poverty, issues of welfare, and then with production and productivity issues that will permit deep analysis, and therefore the utility of the information increases. Another thing we're benefiting is actually reducing the response, the respondent burden. There have been several surveys now going on, and if you continue bothering the respondents, then actually the response fatigue sets in, and you find that you cannot get information. The other one is about the trust in official statistics. Our surveys who had started giving conflicting estimates, two estimates coming from the same institution. So you find that they normally vary, and then you find the users tend to lose trust in the statistics. Finally, I think overall this is more sustainable because we are able to make cost savings, and therefore the government should be able to take over these initiatives once the support from the 50x20 initiative is curtailed. So for now, we would like to beg for support for us to run these activities in terms of technical support and then financial support going forward. Thank you very much. And that is it from me. Hello? Hello?
Thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you.
Hello?
I think.
Okay, so.
Thank you, Patrick. I think we're moving on.
Do I still have some time?
Yes, Patrick, if you want to add something, go ahead. Otherwise, Christophe will come in.
All right, Christophe, why don't you carry forward, and
Sure.
maybe Patrick can come in later to add more.
Sure. I just wanted to mention to the audience the difficulties we have been facing this year, of course, with the COVID-19 pandemic. So this pandemic has really impacted our activities on all the components of the initiative. So I wanted to share with you the ways mitigation measures have been put in place at different levels, at country level, but also at global level. So we will start first at country level. So at country level, when the pandemic started in March, there were immediate measures taken at country level, let's say between March and approximately the beginning of the summer. So two main kind of measures were taken. In the first and the worst case, some data collection activities were to be cancelled. We have had this case in Senegal where the first wave of the annual survey had to be completely cancelled. But the most important measure taken immediately in most of the countries was to postpone the planned activities in terms of data collection. So that was the case of Uganda, Cambodia, and Ethiopia. Then later, of course, more sophisticated measures were taken at country level. So I think that for all countries and all activities, one of the easiest solutions was to try to transform direct technical assistance, direct training to remote training and remote technical assistance. So that was implemented in most of the countries covered by the initiative. And we had also two other specific cases, for example, in Armenia, where the surveys are organized in, for example, in Armenia, in quarterly surveys, and the solution found in Armenia was to simply merge some quarterly surveys. We have had also the case of one country able to transform the existing questionnaire into a questionnaire administered by telephone, and this was the case of Georgia. And then, fortunately, I have to say, in almost all the countries covered by the initiative up to now, all fieldwork resumed almost everywhere. And this was a very strong tendency, particularly in the countries where we had a really national-wide data collection exercise. I want to mention Senegal, Uganda, Cambodia, for example, where all fieldwork resumed starting in July, August, September. And I can say that fortunately the impact has been quite limited in terms of data production, and I think that we are extremely lucky with this situation at country level, where the impact has been somehow limited in terms of data availability and the quality of data provided. So let's conclude with the adaptation measures at global level. So at global level, as I said, all the components were affected by this situation. So for example, our colleagues from IFAD had to organize their data ecosystem assessment remotely. And it's also to be noticed, for example, that the program management team of the initiative had also to organize the remote onboarding of countries. So this is in a very brief introduction, the different ways the countries and the partners have tried to overcome this issue of the pandemic this year. As I said, fieldwork has resumed, but we still need to pay really attention in the near future on the evolution of the situation. So we will have probably to find additional adaptation measures, but this will be probably the topic of another meeting. So I hand over to Elisa for the conclusions on this topic.
Thank you, Christophe. So we're not only sharing with you today the learnings we've had so far, but we're also looking into further partnerships. We still have a lot to learn and a lot to implement. We'd like to expand the country partnerships. As we mentioned earlier, we're opening up for new countries to join the initiative. We'd also like the partners on this call as well to join us in this partnership plan, the partnership plan we call to close the agriculture data gap. What we would like is to have one place where the countries have access to all of the statistical capacity development activities around agriculture and rural data at the country level, so that we can build on each other's work. We'd like to also look into new technical partnerships. So this is a call as well for anyone on this call to reach out to us to help us implement, and also us helping them implement. With that, Haishan, I hand over to you for the Q&A session. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you all very much to all the speakers for sharing all those experiences and lessons learned and achievements. While you're speaking, I see that the chat is also very active. We have well over 100 participants, and some of them sent some very good questions. So I will share some of those questions with our speakers and have some insight and answers from you. We'll start with the following question. Has any thought been given to integrating data collection with implementation of Target 2.4 by financing extension services to collect data as part of their advice and knowledge exchange activities? Great question. I'm wondering whether, Alberto, you'll be able to share some thoughts on this?
I should thank you. I mean, I can try. Maybe then Christophe can also chip in. No, I don't think we have thought about that as specifically. I think the data collection system we've been envisaging of using is the data collection systems, the organization that is already in place with the in each country. Countries have a consolidating way of organizing their service and the type of organization of their enumerators and data collection. But we have been thinking about augmenting that with, for instance, a system of continuous collection, which could be via community informants in the primary sampling units, or by sensors, or now we have seen now the power of phones for collecting information in a more continuous manner. So this could also be done with the community. So that's the type of systems we have been thinking about. But where there is a system of resident enumerators, or where people like extension officers have been contributing already to the statistical system, that's certainly something that we can look into improving. But the focus, of course, for us has been more on statistical production than on the delivery of extension services as such. I don't know if Christophe has experience from countries where FAO has been working on the production of data.
No, Alberto, I fully agree with what you said. What's really important to understand is that the situation is really different from one country to another country. There are countries using extensionists as enumerators. You have countries not using extensionists as enumerator. So that's really depending on the situation in the countries. But of course, I think there are several examples of countries using extensionists for collecting data. And yes, that's something that need to be considered when we implement activities at country level. But it's really a decision to be taken by the countries, the way they organize the data collection. Sometimes they have permanent enumerators paid over the year for covering different surveys. Sometimes they contract consultants. So the situation is very different from one country to another one. Over.
Thank you very much, Christophe and Alberto. Another question just came in, which I will throw it to Emily. There's a great need for accurate time series data in order to assess progress towards SDG goals, evaluate agricultural innovations, etc. How far and how does this need for good and timely data over time drive the initiative? Before Emily, you come in to share some thoughts, I will ask Elisa for two quick questions. One is whether there's any Arab countries participating in this initiative. And another is whether the initiative include financial support for data generation. So Elisa, if you could respond to these two questions, I'll invite Emily to come in to address the question I just read.
Sure. So on the Arab countries are, of course, invited to join the initiative just as Latin America, Caribbean, Asia, and Africa are. We don't have, as of now, an Arab country that has joined, but we do have received a submission from Palestine as part of the current window opening we have as of now. In terms of the financial support to data collection operations, yes, the initiative funds that for the period of time that the initiative provides support to the country. And that, as we mentioned, it depends on the capacity of the country, depending on the cycle, which can be between 5 to 7 years of support for the country. So, so handing over then to Emily.
Lisa, yeah, it's a very good question, and thank you. It was, I think, one of the driving needs that that pushed the partners that formed the initiative to develop the initiative and support survey programs in particular to fill the data gaps for the SDGs and SDG 2 in particular. I mean, we know there are different ways we could get data, some of them less frequent, but the particular programs that existed, the LSMS-ISA and the AgriSurvey program, which were brought together under this initiative and to be scaled up to countries. That's the what they bring in terms of the frequency of the data and the timing and the time series or periodicity then of the data repeating is one of the values, and I think it's seen across the sector, not just from an academic standpoint, but definitely among the countries themselves and the development partners that are helping to support this as we begin to better understand how we're improving towards the SDGs and the goals there, and then more broadly, the learning that we need to do within the sector for agriculture and food security around what works in the relationships between interventions and changes within the sector. So great question, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. Maybe I will go back to Christophe. There's another question, which is very good. What's the difference between IGRIS and 50 by 2030 survey? If you could address to this.
Yes, the answer is very simple. There are more than cousins. I mean, there are very, very strong similarities because the core part of the tool is largely inspired from the AGRIS methodology. There were some improvements of the AGRIS methodology, and the main difference is, of course, the introduction of the household socioeconomic survey. So, Cadarmonto, if you have a look on the questionnaires available on the website of 50 by 2030, you will see a lot of similarities with Agris. So if you are implementing Agris in your country, you will not have any difficulties for implementing the new, let's say, the new version of Agris proposed through the 50 by 2030 tools. Over.
Thank you very much, Christophe. Sorry, I did not mute myself. Next question that came in, Alberto, if you could address that. Are there spatial explicit components of the survey that can better inform how models from satellite data can be developed?
Sorry, let me. Can you repeat that, because I haven't seen that one in the chat, and I haven't. You were breaking up a little bit for me.
Yeah, sorry. Are there satellite explicit components of the survey that can better inform how models from satellite data can be developed? And while you're considering that, I can share with you another question. Regarding the use of satellite imagery, has thought been given to integrating satellite imagery features, feature extraction between agricultural and sorry, it didn't come, like and housing service, between agriculture and housing service and censuses within NSOs?
Thank you. Okay, now two great questions, and so in our approach, our niche, let's say, in this field of Earth observation is the one of focusing on producing ground truthing data. So in fact, that is, I think that responds well to the first question. It is precisely about improving the availability of ground data for better modeling. There is a whole, now initially in the Earth observation frenzy, survey data and Earth observation data were seen as competitors, but now it's more and more clear that they're actually complements. So you need good ground data to validate and train Earth observation models. So that is exactly where our initiative is focusing. So finding better ways to put ground data to the use of the entire community of users. And for doing that, we're partnering also with providers and developers of Earth observation products. And so as we do that, we're also going to contribute to the production of those products. But our is actually to produce protocols that will allow then countries to keep collecting the right type of data for the development of better Earth observation products. So I hope that answered the first question. And the second one, feature extraction for sure. I don't think we have been thinking specifically about like housing, but for recognition of things related to ag production, so of crop conditions and crop types, for sure. And as I was saying, I mean, our focus is on ground truthing. The second part of that question is also asking about Earth observation for land area measurement, and yes, that's definitely something that we've been thinking about, and in particular, through the use of satellite imagery also for having farmers delineate a plot on a picture or a map on a tablet in the moment of the face-to-face interview. That is something where we have been experimenting, and we plan to do more. And particularly for commercial farms, I think where farm sizes are larger, which is a feature of also of this initiative, that this initiative is going to cover. These, I think, holds particularly good promise of working well. Over to you, Aishan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alberto. I know that Patrick, you and Barish, you have a lot to share based on your experience. So I will through one question at each of you. To Patrick, could you provide additional information in terms of cost effectiveness of the integrated survey as adapted in Uganda? And for Abarash, also from your experience, can you share some value added of the coordination with various agencies in Ethiopia, as well as the different implementing agencies that sitting around at this discussion? While you are preparing to respond to these questions, I want to acknowledge in the chat, one of our participants shared the progress in Nepal, as they have been conducting pilot agri surveys in 2019 with core and PME module, and also their work around censuses that directly contribute to better data for monitoring the SDGs. So I want to congratulate you, and I'm glad that you share this information with us. And I also want to acknowledge one question from Afristat. One module very important to add to integrated survey is on governance, security, and peace, and mainly security, because in many countries this topic is very much linked. I believe that's what you want to say, to poverty, because of farmers may not be able to produce or to send their production. Many security not be able to, sorry, I can't go down quickly, not be able to produce or to send their production. Anyway, maybe one of our speakers could respond to address that question. But before that, let me invite Patrick to come in to share some information on the cost effectiveness of the integrated survey. Patrick, I think you might be on mute.
Thank you very much, Aishan. Itself, for example, we're able to use like about $300,000. Now, if the US and uses about you find that the cost escalates. But saving, if you listed once, you could make a saving of $300. Part of, if you reduce trips from a saving of about $500,000 for both surveys, a big saving. Now, both surveys used to use conventional methods of data capture, using PAPI and capturing information conventionally, manually. But now we're using improved technologies. At least we're using tablets for capturing information, and the information is validated and sent straight to the servers, which facilitates quicker editing, analysis, to cut a lot of costs. We're here to come up with the figures of the real cost reduction. $1 million, and the UNPS probably 700,000. We could be able to those costs. That is what I can submit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's great to see how cost effective by pursuing this integrated service. And I'm really glad that you've been able to benefit from this new approach. Now, let's go to Ethiopia. Abarash, maybe you can share some thoughts on the value added from this stronger coordination? Maybe Abarash, you are muted.
Sorry. Yes, so thank you. As I said earlier, this project facilitated the coordination very highly. So the coordination in the national statistical system is a challenge, and which we are trying to address. And this structure, it helped us to create a good coordination structure, and it brings the relevant stakeholders together, starting from planning. While we're planning for surveys, while we're planning for research, we are starting together, we are planning together, and during data collection, we will be together, and also this will facilitate data use. So this will also create awareness, and it creates also trust among data producers, researchers, and policymakers like Planning Commission, and also data users like Ministry of Agriculture. So it creates a trust among these institutes. So it also helps to work together. It creates a good environment, a good working environment among these agencies for data producers, users, and researchers. And we hope that this system will also facilitate other coordination activities in the national statistical system, in addition to agricultural data collection. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's really great to see the progress on that front. I'm really glad that we still have over 90 participants at the event. Thank you so much for your engagement and enthusiasm. Another question came in. What are the plans for the dissemination and use of the survey micro data collected from the 50 by 2030, especially for countries that do not have efficient dissemination platforms? Perhaps, Emily, you could respond to this question?
Sure. Thanks, Haishan, and thanks for the question. In general, of course, we try to first support the country to be able to disseminate the data through any portals or websites or platforms that they have. But if they don't have the capacity to maintain the platform or the website and need support, we also have the platforms within both FAO and the World Bank. Although within the FAO, there is the new Food and Agricultural Microdata Catalog, which is a way to link and distribute the micro data sets, and that also will be cross-referenced with the existing database for survey data within the World Bank. So that is, and that's the expectation, is that we would hope to do both, because it certainly, if we put it on the international sort of platforms that we have access to and that we're able to support, then we can increase the amount of the number of people that are able to access the data. And so that would be an avenue. If the country itself can't support it through its national system, then we could support it and hopefully get them to the point that maybe that they would be able to in the long term. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Emily. You know, one thing that I really appreciate about this initiatives that is it put the use of the data generated through this initiative right at the start of the whole design, and therefore that we can really, along the way of supporting countries to produce better data, we're already working so hard on how to support countries to make effective use of those data to really influence policies and program designs. So it's thank you very much for leading that component. I just wonder whether any of you would like to share some thought on the question I read earlier from AFRSTAT, which is about the possibility for the integrated survey to include topics on governance, security, and peace, given that the lack of stability really affect farmers' ability to produce and also to sell their products in the market, and therefore to make sure that we have a productive investment in agriculture. Anyone would like to comment on that particular question before I move to the next? Christoph, Alberto,
if
please.
If nobody else wants it, I can
no, I
take
love
it.
that. I love that.
No, that's
Please.
a great question. And I mean, as Elisa was saying at the beginning, I think this needs to be a very candid discussion. So, to be completely honest, I think that is one topic that we have not considered so far. But as we are trying to balance producing more data and more relevant data with minimizing response margin, right? So I think the way we're approaching this, as I said in my presentation, also is to create a feedback loop between our stakeholders and what we develop in terms of methodologies. So first of all, we would definitely consider it, particularly if there is a demand from countries to do that. And right now, our let's say our guiding light have been the SDG agenda, or in Africa also the CAADP agenda. So to the extent the country needs these sort of modules to also report on these indicators, or if they are priorities for the countries, we can definitely consider it. And we would particularly happy to consider if there is validated methods for the collection of those data, right? So if there is something that we can offer to countries to integrate in the other instrument for scaling up, please do reach out to us and share your experience with collecting this type of data, and we'll definitely consider adding it to the menu.
Thank you very much, Alberto, for being so candid and also acknowledging the scope of this initiative will continue to evolve, and some of those critical issues being highlighted by our participants are very important. We will see how far we can go in that area. Another question that I would like to give to Christoph is that is there any report or handbook on integrated survey satellite application, especially on measuring maize yield? It's a very specific question. If you could have a quick
I would say not yet, because we have a very important component under the methodological component of the initiative. Probably Alberto would be providing better answer and could do on that.
Yeah, thank you. So we will register that, and I think there's definitely need for that. All right, thank you very
Aisha,
much.
do you want me to very quickly chime in on that?
Very quickly, and then we will wrap up.
So I've pasted in the chat a paper that my colleague Talib Kilic, who is connected, has done on maize yield in Uganda using Earth observation data, and then also the handbook on remote sensing for agricultural statistics that the Global Strategy produced. And then as part of one output of our work is going to be a protocol on producing ground data for integration with our Earth observation application. So stay tuned, and that's precisely one of the things we're working on. And there's going to be a seminar in March, so also stay tuned for that with the initial results. Over.
Thank you very much, Alberto. All right, we will have one last question to Eliza. The two presentations from Ethiopia and Uganda were very interesting. Does the initiative plan for experience sharing sessions between all or some participating countries? Learning from other countries' challenges and best practice would definitely help to improve each country's implementation plan. So a quick words from Eliza?
Yes, the answer is yes, absolutely. We're planning regional and global conference. We're also planning to come back to UNSC as well next year and share our learnings as transparently as we've done today. So the answer is yes to that. And also just to mention that some questions I think are still coming in and unanswered. So we will definitely, as the initiative, come back to those that are unanswered. Thanks. Back to you, Haishan.
Thank you very much. I'm just really, really happy to see that we have this very engaging conversation, and still over 80 participants stayed with us, and thank you very much for your active participation and for all the questions that you raised and that you can see clearly has motivated the initiative and the partners to continue to innovate and expand the scope of our work in response to country needs. I'm really glad that this session is recorded, so others could benefit from learning from this discussion, and at the same time that we would be very happy to follow up with you all. And if you can indeed get in touch with us through the website and following the progress of this initiative, and as Elisa mentioned, next year we'll come back to the UNSC Commission to share the further progress with this initiative, and I hope that more countries would have joined and more surveys and implementation activities are being pursued so that we continue to push for more progress. So with that, I just want to thank everyone, especially those who stayed so late to join all of us. And this is really an incredible experience. I just want to thank all of you. And please, we'll have a very short survey about this session. And if you could kindly fill them, the link will be shared on the chat. And with that, big thank you to you all. And we'll see you next year with more progress to share. Thank you very much.